Recording in progress.
Hello, we're going to get started. That's very loud. Gentlemen, colleagues, please take your seats. We're starting at 7 o'clock. Welcome, everyone. This is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Land Use Committee. I'm Andrea Kelly. I'm the chair of the committee. With me here in the chamber, we have Councillor Tariq Lucas from Ward 2. We have Councillor Alan Lobovitz from Ward 6. And not John Oliver, but Stephen Farrell from Ward 8 with the wrong name tag. And we are joined on Zoom by other committee members. We have Andrea Downs and Julia Maliki, not on the committee, but on the meeting, and Mark Laredo and Randy Block. Is that everyone? Oh, and Councillor Wright. Welcome. We love it when people not on the committee come join us. Tonight, we're going to start, I didn't bring the, with the numbers. There we go, thank you. Item number 67-24, which is a request for extension of time to exercise a special permit, number 448-22 at 1 Jackson Street. Oh, before I do that, I just realized I should introduce the other people who are with us, the staff members. We have our city clerk, Scott Matthews. We have planning people on line 2. Let me see here. Kat Kemet from the planning department, Joe Iadonisi from planning, Jonah Temple from law, Katie Wewell from planning, and I think that's it for now. Oh, and we have our Economic Development Director, John Sisson, here in the chamber. That was all a little out of order, but it got covered. So back to number 67-24, extension of time. Are we going to hear from the Planning Department on this request?
Madam Chair, I think typically the petitioner person requesting goes first.
I believe that might be Franklin Schwartzer.
It is, Madam Chairman. Good evening, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Franklin Schwartzer. I'm an attorney at the law firm of Schlesinger and Bookbinder at 1200 Walnut Street, Newton Highlands. And I'm here tonight representing 345 Boylston LLC, the owner of 1 Jackson Street. We received a special permit for this. It was approved in land use resoundingly and then approved unanimously at City Council last year. My client was able to obtain a building permit. It took him a little while to get financing. December 27th, the building permit issued. I actually believe construction may have started, so we may technically have, at this point, have exercised the special permit. But as a safety measure, I'm looking for the extension of the 1-year timeline just to make sure everything's good.
Thank you, Mr. Schwartzer. This is from Ward 6. So, Councillor Lobovitz, would you like to speak to this or make a motion? No. As the councillor from the ward, you would normally make the motion to approve, if you would like to do that, and if you don't want to do that, someone else will do that. You don't. Would someone? Yes, Councillor Lucas.
Motion to grant a 1-year extension of time.
Second? Second from Councillor Lobovitz.
Second.
So we can take a vote on that.
Councillor Block?
Aye.
Councillor Downs?
Aye.
Councillor Farrell?
Aye.
Councillor Kelly?
Aye.
Councillor Leary? Counselor Lovovitz,
Aye.
Counselor Lucas,
Aye.
Counselor Laredo.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Good luck with your extension. The second item tonight is number 68-24. It's a request to amend a special permit number 40-97 parens 2 and allow a freestanding sign at 269 to 287 Grove Street. We will hear from planning on that.
Okay, good evening. I'll be covering the special permit request for the Riverside Center at 269-258 Grove Street. There's two items for this. So the first is to amend an existing special permit from 1997, which was for the initial construction of the Riverside Center. One of the conditions of this, and firstly, it's about a 500,000 square foot business center, primarily made up of office space, but there are accessory uses allowed per the special permit, including restaurants, and those accessory uses are not allowed to have advertising or signs per that special permit. So the first part of this relief requested is to remove that prohibition on signage and advertisement for accessory uses. And then the second piece of it is to allow for a freestanding sign. This would be at the request of the center, but on the behalf of Kendall Kitchen, which is an existing restaurant in the Riverside Center. So there's criteria to consider with this, and its first is that the business 4 zone is an appropriate location for the sign, that the proposed sign will not adversely affect the neighborhood or create nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians, that access to site over the streets is appropriate for the type and number of vehicles involved, and that the proposed exceptions to the sign ordinance should be permitted and are appropriate due to the nature of use of the premises, the architecture of the buildings, or their location with reference to the street, is such that such exceptions are in the public interest. So a look at where the Riverside Business Center or Riverside Center is. It's right next to the north of the Riverside T-Stop, and in the vicinity of the Woodland Golf Course, with some neighborhoods to the north and to the east, surrounded by a variety of different zones. This is a look at the site plan for the project. The existing site plan with where the existing sign is on the left is where the sign is right now for the Riverside Center. And I'll show you a picture of that in a minute. To the right is where the petitioners have initially requested that their signs be located, both to the north of that entrance and to the south of that entrance, right by where the parking entrance is to the facilities. They have two locations that they would be okay with per the original petition. This is what the proposed signage is. As you can see with the existing signage, there's a stone sign for the Riverside Center, and the proposal was for that primary location to put a sign next to it. As you can see from the proposed sign to the right, it is a 24 square foot sign that's a freestanding sign, which is what requires a special permit about it, in addition to needing the additional relief. So as a sign, it has to go before the Urban Design Commission, which has reviewed it and recommended denial for the following reasons. Mostly because it just believes that the location is inappropriate for the sign, and they don't want one business to have it next to the main sign for an office park. However, I'll stop the slideshow before we move it over to discussion. Planning's recommendation at this time is for approval of amending the existing permit and to allow for the freestanding sign. The petitioners are willing to move that location of the sign Ultimately, our assessment is that this is a pretty serious impediment to local business and small businesses, that they wouldn't be able to advertise their location. The Kendall Kitchen is tucked away in the back of the Riverside Center, so it's really going to only be limited to those people who work there, unless it has some signage to show people where to go. And that would be helpful for its longevity, especially as it's near transit in some neighborhoods where it might get some more foot traffic if people know where it is located. So this could be useful in wayfinding and promoting small business. Additionally, we tried to take a look at what the rationale was for that 1997 special permit. Per the minutes of the meetings, there wasn't any discussion about why in particular they didn't want any advertising or signage. The guess is that they didn't want any additional traffic on the site, but currently with how things are with the office sector, office space sector here in 2024, where there's a lot of vacancies, that's not as big of a concern to create additional traffic, and we want to do what we can to support small businesses. Something that the petitioner has said that they're willing to do is relocate that sign, so that could satisfy the Urban Design Commission's initial concerns about the location of it, and with some work with the Planning Department and Urban Design Commission with the new location, ultimately, we recommend that this be approved. And that's all I have for right now.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone who would like to speak from the petitioner's side on this to add any? Oh, please come up to that stand there. You'll need to turn the microphone on at the base.
Did it work?
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Tori Sabatino. Joe, thank you for presenting our application to amend the existing special permit at 275 Grove Street. My name is Tori Sabatino. I am a development manager at Great Land Realty Partners. We purchased 275 Grove Street this summer, and lucky enough in the acquisition, the cafe was near completion of construction. So by chance, we became partners with Arudian, who is the owner of Kendall Kitchen. I know our application has supporting documentation that Harach is an immigrant entrepreneur. This is his third location. 2 locations are in Cambridge, and this is his first in Newton. So both Greatland and Kendall Kitchen are new to the community. We're really excited to be here, and we believe that allowing a freestanding sign will notify our neighbors that the cafe is open for public use. If you haven't been to 275 Grove Street, is a beautiful building with a 4-story atrium that connects our buildings. The cafe is new construction, so, oh, you can hear me, okay.
I was just making sure that your microphone was working for everyone.
Like I said, the construction is brand new, so it's a really warm, inviting place to grab coffee with a friend, enjoy lunch or breakfast. The cafe, Harach has the capability to cater events and meetings, so I'm really just here to advocate that we believe this sign will increase our community participation as new landlords in Newton, and I'm just really excited that we have the opportunity to work with you guys right off the bat coming into the city. So as Joe mentioned, I know that the initial proposal of the sign's location was recommended to be denied by the UDC, but we're willing to work in any way to get a sign out front and support a small business owner. So I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Sabatino. I'm looking forward to coming. I hear great things about the cafe.
It's great food. Thank
Anyone else from the public or the audience who would like to speak to this? Let me see online. I don't see anyone from the public, so we will take it into committee. Councilor Laredo.
Thank you, Chair Kelly. There's a couple of issues here. One is the very specific issue relating to this particular petitioner in this particular location, and certainly I understand the rationale for this particular project. Smaller business trying to get some visibility You know, there's a lot to be said in favor of that. The two issues strike me. One, you know, it's rather unusual for the Urban Design Commission to reject something in its entirety. And that always strikes me when it does. That's number one. Number two, if there's going to be an alternative location, I'd like to see the commission weigh in on that location first and then come back to us with a recommendation rather than us just approve something subject to the commission's, you know, then have the commission kind of think about it. But the bigger question is one that's not before us, which is the suggestion from the planning department that we do away with this requirement in its entirety. And I would actually be concerned about that. That's not before us now, Ms. Wewald. That would go to zoning and planning, correct?
I'm sorry, I don't know if I understand the question. So
If there was a suggestion in the memo that we do away with that all these requirements for freestanding signs for businesses. Did I misread something?
Oh, I don't recall that. I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't think that's our position, but I
This
think
this would specifically be for this special permit for the Riverside Center.
There's no suggestion about changing the ordinance more generally?
Not at this time.
No, I don't think we have the bandwidth.
I'm not suggesting you do. And again, forgive me if I misread something. What you're proposing is that we allow by special permit, that we amend the special permit to permit this sign, and then we allow the sign to go in. That's the gist of it, right?
Yes, that's correct. And, you know, at least by eliminating that language that is really prohibitive in the special permit, it would at least allow them to install by right signs, which always go before UDC and are pretty heavily regulated in the zoning ordinance.
Well, I guess I'd be more concerned with the idea that we eliminated the requirement in its entirety for this. This is a large site with multiple tenants in there. Are you suggesting that we allow all tenants to put signs up independently?
I think this is no different than any other site without this requirement that is subject to a comprehensive sign plan, like we'll see later with the street. They can put, you know, they have several signs on site advertising their tenants. I think Greatland would probably be thoughtful in how that signage goes, and it would be subject to review by the Urban Design Commission as well.
Well, Ms. Wewell, when the street, which is coming up to us shortly this evening, has come before us now several times saying we want to change our permit to change the configuration of signs there. For one, it's my ward and I've been very supportive of it. I've always thought their planning is very thoughtful. I don't want to comment yet on their current petition, but this is a little different. You're saying lift the requirement in its entirety and then just let the UDC deal with it. And I guess I'm concerned with essentially a location on a scenic route with a building which has a significant number of tenants and not having any controls in place at all. In other words, they're not coming to us with a plan that we'd be asked to approve. They're just saying lift the requirements.
I mean, I'm not sure if you want a response to that, but the condition places a more stringent prohibition on these accessory uses, restaurants, coffee shop, newsstand. So other businesses are allowed to advertise, such as office tenants. I don't think that is prohibited by the condition. This is only accessory uses. So the distinction to me is that this condition is extremely prohibitive to these smaller accessory uses, and that may
So,
just be a difference.
I'll defer to my colleagues. I certainly want to listen very carefully to what they think. I'm generally, just so I can share, I think I'd be supportive of this particular petitioner. Seems like a very worthwhile, appropriate. I'd be much more hesitant about a blanket lifting of it for some of the reasons I've stated, but I really want to hear from my colleagues because I'm going to keep an open mind. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
And thank you, Councilor Laredo. Councilor Lucas.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just want to reference what Councilor Laredo was talking about. I'm just going to read verbatim from the planning memo. Planning believes the language prohibiting advertising by accessory uses should be eliminated swiftly to remove a barrier for local businesses that seek to locate at the Riverside Office Center and would allow signs permitted by right under Section 5.2 of the zoning ordinance. I believe that's what Councilor Laredo was referring to. That would be, I guess, I don't know, to planning, this question's for planning. I guess we would need a new council order and maybe a new docket item to potentially remove that. But that being said, I would like to have some control. I believe land use, excuse me, should have some control over the signs that are being placed here because I think there's many accessory uses, excuse me, that this site could hold, and it's good to maintain some control over the size and location of these signs. But I do have a follow-up question related to this. If we were to remove this barrier, would it still need to go through the Urban Design Commission?
All signs go through the Urban Design Commission.
All right, thank you.
Can I also jump in for 1 second, just to clarify, if that part of the condition is removed, essentially the one sentence that says no advertising or promotion of uses is allowed, that doesn't mean there won't be a check on future signs. It just means all signs will have to comply with the zoning ordinance. Zoning ordinance sets forth many limitations on signs and requires a special permit for certain signs. And if a sign that requires a special permit wants to be put in there, they will have to come back to you to get that special permit. And as Ms. Wewell just said, all signs will go to UDC first. So that it's not that there won't be any checks. It will just mean, as with any other use in the city, it will need to comply with the zoning requirements.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Temple. So I guess what we have in front of us is the sign. I am supportive of the alternate location that we saw earlier. I'll leave it at that for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Lucas. I'd like to just clarify in case anyone is confused. I think there are two different portions of this that we're going to tackle. We're discussing them all together, but we will vote on them separately. The first one is about removing the sign prohibition, whether we do that or not, to approve that relief. And the second one is based on the fact that UDC denied it based solely on the location. We will talk about a new location. And as has been pointed out, that will go, UDC will have control over that. And our vote tonight will have some ability to do that depending on what the conditions are. Councilor Downs, I see your hand.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I have a question for planning, and I hope I'm not putting it on the spot, but have you looked into how many cases in which we have special permits that regulate signage to this degree, or is this fairly unique?
I can, kind of speak to my experience for the last 5 years. I think we have various regulations on signage, whether that's through a comprehensive sign plan with specific signs being referenced. I think the street, I think Piccadilly Square has a sign package, but that's more allowing the signs and giving some flexibility on where they're located and what they say, but I've never seen anything like this condition, so I don't think anyone
this one is, it may not be the only time that council has done this, but it's one of the few times that council has been quite this restrictive.
That, from my experience, yes, but I
Okay.
haven't read every special permit.
Absolutely, that would be quite a task. So I guess where I'm coming on this is, you know, that we're at a point where our budget is being asked to cover more and more things. And particularly, that's particularly obvious this fall and winter. And our commercial tax base pays much more than our residential tax base. And so we have an inherent interest as city councilors who want to have resources for things to improve that tax base and help our small businesses to the extent we can. And this is a fairly low dollar, in fact, it doesn't cost us anything, way to allow this business and perhaps a few future businesses with UDC having ultimate, design control on it, to allow them to do some moderate advertising, let people who are getting off the Riverside line or who are in the neighborhood know that, oh, there's a cafe here. And, maybe there's a coffee shop, place to print out your materials or to get online or something like that as well. I don't envision this becoming a massive shopping center, but even then UDC would be controlling. So I'm inclined to support this.
Thank you, Councillor Downs. Are there any other members of the Land Use Committee who would like to ask questions about this? Anyone who hasn't spoken before?
Councillor Block is trying to raise his hand. Madam Chair.
I was going to ask him specifically if he'd like to speak. I couldn't tell whether the hand was up, the hand was down. Councillor Block.
Thank you very much. I'm having a little trouble with my hand icon here, so sorry about that. Well, this is in Ward 4. I know this location very well. It's a gorgeous building, and the landscaping is gorgeous. Most of you probably know this is officially designated as a scenic road, and I suspect that's one of the reasons this might have been included in the original special permit. I'm very concerned about this sign and signage in general. There are no commercial signs right now. There's a sign for the building, for the Riverside Management Building. There's a sign for the LaSalle Village Complex, but there's no commercial signage, and this could be the first of many, as number of councilors have already pointed out. There's one of the buildings on this site is totally empty. So what the plans are for that, we don't really know. I'm at the appropriate time, I'm going to move to hold this. I think that there are issues regarding the particular location, which the UDC has pointed out. I think there are questions about whether commercial signage is a good idea at all on Grove Street, at least given the way it's currently perceived by the neighbors. I'd like to know what neighbors think about this particular proposal. That may not be commonly done in a signage question, but people take appearances in this area very seriously. Auburndale is a designated historic district. I suspect this building is not in that district, but it is adjacent to it. So those are some of my concerns about this. Maybe eventually we'll find some compromise over it. The internal wayfaring signage within the building, they can promote this business quite easily inside. I don't think they need any approvals from us to do that. I've been in this building and there have been difficulties finding the cafe when it was, I guess, Rebecca's Cafe. It's sort of at the very end of the building. So you know, the building itself can take some steps internally. And I think there are ways of informing the adjacent neighborhoods that there is a business here that that is available to them and what hours it's available. And that's those are my comments for now. So thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor Block. Anybody else from the committee have questions? We will come back to you, Councillor Block, when it is motion time. Back to you, Councillor Lucas.
Thank you. Just a question for planning, because you said that all signs have to go through the UDC. If we choose an alternate location, the alternate location, does that still have to go to the UDC?
No, so they are required, I think, to go to the UDC once, and then the UDC issues a non-binding recommendation for, I think, signs required by special permit. And I'm sorry, I just lost my train of thought. So the land use committee doesn't have to take that non-binding recommendation. We've seen it before with signs on the Pike. The UDC always denies signs on the Pike because they don't think it's a street frontage. So there's just different quirks, and the land use committee can approve signs that were recommended for denial. And since they've already been to the UDC, they wouldn't have to go back again.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Block mentioned, and I didn't see this in a planning memo, so forgive me, that this is a scenic road. Is that in fact the case?
I am not sure. Jonah, do you know?
I don't know whether or not it is, but I wouldn't find that relevant to this committee's consideration.
Okay. All right, thank you. All set.
Thank you, Councillor Lucas. I'm just going to weigh in a little bit after hearing everybody's comments. To some of the things that Councillor Downs said, one of our goals in the city is to support small local business. And though Councillor Block pointed out that signage within the building will let people go to the cafe, I'm more thinking about people like me, a passerby who has no idea that it's in there or how to get to it, or commuters walking to or from Riverside Station who aren't in the building to see the interior signage. And I think without that signage outside, we will be doing a real disservice to this cafe. It appears to me to be a tasteful sign. UDC had only a problem, to the best of my knowledge, and I'd like to have confirmation one more time from planning on this. It wasn't about the appearance of the sign, it was just the location of it right next to the stone sign. They would have preferred it move further away. I thought that if we approved it tonight, conditional on planning and the UDC together agreeing on a location, that would serve my purposes. Ms. Whewell, is that a true statement, or would UDC not be involved again?
I think the land use committee could certainly condition another visit to the UDC. Joe and I both spoke to our colleague, Shubi Sika, who staffs the UDC, and she did confirm that the location was the main issue. They didn't like it next to the existing stone sign. They asked if they could maybe combine the signs, but then I think the landscaping presents a problem to block the lower part of the existing sign. So it just sounded like there was just some more work to be done, but that perhaps that could happen in the coming weeks. So I think the committee could condition the applicant going back to the UDC while approving the freestanding sign.
That's what I thought. Thank you, Ms. Whewell. So for me, I would be positively inclined towards this. Councillor Maliki, would you like to say something?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was just curious. I think this would be for planning and or law. I've heard references to, helping a small or local business, which, I certainly want to do. But if it were, say, Panera or McDonald's or somebody else that moved into that or another space in this complex, would they be entitled to the same privilege as this local business?
Yeah, and to elaborate on that, I think one of, kind of the different components of our recommendation is if there is no signage, how do you know the business is there? And signs just serve an important wayfinding component. So I think our recommendation would be the same. I think the small business aspect is just a positive aspect of this petition.
If I could add one caveat, fast food is a separate use in our zoning ordinance. And this does not have fast food as an accepted accessory use. It does allow restaurants, but not fast food. So that could potentially mitigate the chance of a chain coming in, like a Panera or McDonald's, and utilizing the lack of prohibition on advertising or signage.
Thank you,
Thank
Joe.
you.
Also, they would still have to go before the UDC for approval for a sign. Could I get clarification from the clerk before we vote? Are we separating these into two items? That's up to the committee. Mr. Temple, do you have a recommendation on how we should proceed with that?
No, I think one vote is fine, but if you're not seeing consensus or if there's interest in splitting it up into two votes, I'm comfortable with that. One vote would be to grant a special permit to allow this freestanding sign, and then the second vote would be to amend the prior special permit to remove the prohibition on all signs.
Or to add on to that, we could modify it as the committee sees fit, because I think we would need to modify it in some way to allow the sign. But we would be at the directive of the committee for that. And Madam Chair, Councilor Block has his hand up again.
Councilor Block.
Thanks very much. I'd like to ask the planning department whether this sign is illuminated or not illuminated. Or maybe I could rephrase that. Is illumination permitted or not permitted under the current draft that you've presented to us?
Two different questions.
Joe, I don't know if you have that. I know that would be in the UDC review, and perhaps the petitioner can answer that, but I know that is something the UDC takes a close look at and weighs in on, but I'm not sure if this one is specifically illuminated.
We have an answer to the first part of your question. The petitioner is saying, no, the sign is not illuminated. The second part of the question is something that planning or law would need to address, whether it's permitted. But if it's not being part of this, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, in general, illuminated signs are permitted subject to the UDC approval. So that is something they weigh in on.
Well, I'm not sure, Madam Chair, if the fact that this particular plan does not include illumination, but that could be decided in the future without coming back to us or anybody else. It sounds like it's awfully relevant to me.
I'm not saying it's not relevant. I'm just answering the question that the proposal for this sign does not include illumination. And Katie Wewell said that illumination is allowed. So I'm not sure what would happen at a later stage if there were to be a change to this sign.
I would also add to that, Madam Chair, that as I said before, illumination is and all signs are governed by our zoning ordinance as well, which has a handful of regulations as to illuminated signs and when they can and cannot be illuminated, and how bright and other matters like that.
Well, I'm all for supporting local business, but I'm going to respectfully move that this be held for further consideration.
I'll come back to you for the motion. We still have another counselor who would like to speak. Counselor Lucas. You just had your hand up.
Yeah, I was going to say that it's not illuminated because I know Councilor Block was asking. But since you called on me. And following the advice of Mr. Temple and Ms. Wewell, if we could split these, parens A, parens B, I think that would be my suggestion.
Okay, there's a suggestion. Councilor Laredo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I always have considerable respect to the views of any ward councilor who serves, or any counselor from a ward who serves in this committee who has particular concerns. I, for one, see a difference between, look, I don't want to get bogged down in a single sign. I think we get a little bit too granular when that comes to that, and I want this business to succeed. So I don't have a problem with this particular issue. What I do have concerns about, though, is a couple things. One, this is a scenic road, from what I understand from Councilor Block, and that does make a difference to me. Yep. Scenic roads are designed to have a certain aesthetic to them. That's number one. Number two, I presume that our predecessors on this committee some 20 years ago had good reason for doing this and putting this prohibition in, and I suspect it had rationale having to do that this was a pretty big office park and it was in an area that otherwise didn't have one. It's a good building. We want them to succeed, but they placed some limits. I guess, Ms. Wewell, would there be an ability on the part of the landlord or the owner to convert, the first floor in its entirety to a series of restaurants and shops and so forth, and turn it more into some kind of mall-like building without approval from us?
I think that would require an amendment to the special permit, and they would also be subject to review for parking requirements, whether office is higher or cafe. That would all be under review should they come in to convert a space at,
I appreciate that. I guess what I'm concerned about is if we're talking, the potential of one or two accessory businesses, I don't frankly have a big concern about it. But if there's the ability by right, because they meet the parking requirements, for example, to turn this into a completely different type of use in the building, that may be perfectly good and appropriate, but I wouldn't want to give up all controls over signage in that situation, because you could see 5, 6, 8 signs now placed all over there, which I think is very different, quite honestly. And again, I don't want to discourage businesses from being successful, but I just think we want to think about. I think we need to think through the consequences of this more. That's all. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Laredo. Okay, I think we've heard from everyone who wants to say something tonight. We have a motion ready to be made. It is one motion on one agenda item. So I think we should take that up. Before we do that, let's see if there is some wording for findings and a condition.
Madam Chair, this is Councilor
Oh,
Leary.
yay, welcome. I'm sorry. I'm glad you're here.
I jumped in and I didn't hear a lot of the discussion, so I just wanted to let you know that I will abstain tonight from the vote, okay, and check in with you later to get more details.
Well, that might work well if we hold it anyway. Thank you and welcome to the meeting, Councilor Leary.
Thank you.
Back to planning, so we could take a look at the council order. Oh, sorry, Councilor Lobovitz. I kept looking to see if you wanted to raise your hand.
Could you just repeat the motion, please?
It hasn't been made yet, officially.
Oh, okay.
What I'm requesting is for us to be able to look at the draft council order before we vote on the motion that Councilor Block will make again in a minute officially. I thought you wanted to speak. I was so excited. Okay, back to planning.
Okay, our draft findings are that the site in the Business 4 zone is an appropriate location for the proposed freestanding sign due to the large size of the site is within a business zone, which will improve visibility of the accessory uses on site. The site in the Business 4 zone is an appropriate location for the amendment to special permit 40-97, parentheses 2, because allowing businesses to advertise is consistent with the intent of the Business 4 zone and will remove a barrier to local businesses. The proposed sign, as designed, will not adversely affect the neighborhood because the proposed sign is 24 square feet and will aid in wayfinding for visitors to the site. The proposed freestanding sign will not create a nuisance or serious hazards to vehicles or pedestrians because it will aid in wayfinding for visitors to the site and eliminate potential confusion for visitors to the site due to the lack of signage. Access to the site over streets is appropriate for the types and numbers of vehicles involved, and the proposed exceptions to the sign ordinance should be permitted and are appropriate due to the nature of the use of the premises and are public interest because the site is located within a Business 4 zone and will aid in wayfinding for visitors to the site.
Thank you, Joe. Let's go back to Councillor Block to make your motion. And normally I would ask for a motion to close the public hearing, but I'm not going to do that in case the motion is to keep the public hearing open in a hold. So Councillor Block, officially make your motion, please.
Yes, I move to hold and to keep the public hearing open. I would just add as a comment that I think that planning should research whether this is a scenic road. I thought that was very well documented in the Riverside MU3 permit that was approved by the City Council in 2020. But why don't we have that piece of information confirmed or not? And just a comment on this building. This is a gorgeous building. The landscaping, I think the landscaping should win an award. It's very attractive and it's very much in keeping with the rest of that stretch of Grove Street. And I think a lot of people want to keep it that way. So I think there's a fair amount to think about for this. So that's the basis for my motion.
Thank you, Councillor Block. Joe, did you have something more you wanted to say before we take a vote?
I would just like to answer the councilor's question for planning about whether or not this is a scenic road. I do have this as a scenic road and subject to ordinance 20-40 section 6, which affects the fences along the road as far as which roads are designated scenic.
And I can also add to that, Madam Chair, that scenic road regulations are within the purview of the planning board, and they only involve changes to the scenic road within the right of way. So it involves removal of city trees or city fences or city walls or reconstruction within the right of way. That is what the scenic road protections are.
So that goes before the planning board, not the city council, and does not include provisions about signs.
Correct.
Thank you for that clarification, Mr. Temple. If there are no more questions or comments, I think we're ready to take a vote. The vote is on to hold. So an aye would be to hold the item, a nay would be not to hold it, in which case we'll have another conversation next.
Councillor Block?
Aye.
Councillor Downs?
No.
What was that?
Nay.
No, okay, sorry. Councillor Farrell?
Aye.
Councillor Kelly?
No.
Councillor Leary?
Abstain.
Councillor Lobovitz?
Aye.
Councillor Lucas?
No.
Councillor Laredo?
Aye.
Motion passes.
There we go. We'll see you again. The next item we have tonight, we're halfway through, technically. Number 69-24, request to allow a parking stall within 5 feet of the street and to waive the parking stall depth at 113 Edinburgh Street. I think we're going to hear from the petitioner first on this because they have requested a continuance, which means we won't be reviewing or debating this tonight if we accept the motion for a continuance. Mr. Morris?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I want to take this opportunity to welcome the new members of the Land Use Committee. Congratulations on your election and your appointment to the committee. And I look forward to working with you over the next 2 years of your term. I believe each member of the committee, as well as the chair, has received a copy of the memo requesting this continuance. The reason for that is one of the critical facts involved in this petition is the amount of area that's available to accommodate the parking. A discrepancy has arisen with respect to that regarding the survey of the site. And so for that reason, we want to clarify what that amount of area is and would likely involve a resurvey of the property, which has already been commissioned. So we think that obviously a continuance would allow us to respond in a more meaningful way when we come back to the committee, should you grant our request to continue the matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morris.
I would also say, in any event, that I would offer members of the committee and say that on behalf of the petitioner, I would make myself and the petitioner available should any member of the committee, either singly or as a group, care to visit the site to assess the conditions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morris. I highly urge all the members of the committee to visit the site, whether individually or perhaps in a group, to meet you there. I think this is one of the most usual cases where it's always beneficial to visit the site. I went by yesterday and it was very helpful to me. So thank you for offering to meet people if they'd like to do it that way. Let's see. I think we can just take a vote on accepting the request for continuation. Yes, thank you.
I don't know if you want to see if anybody from the public is here.
Oh, that's a good question. Are there any members of the public, either in the chamber or on Zoom, who would like to speak? We're not actually going to talk about the details of the proposal because it may change, but if you'd like to talk about the continuation, which is what we're going to vote on tonight, please just raise your hand or let us know. And seeing none, we'll just take a vote.
Councillor Block?
Aye.
Councillor Downs?
Aye.
Councillor Farrell?
Aye.
Councillor Kelly?
Aye.
Councillor Leary?
Aye.
Councillor Lovovitz?
Aye.
Councillor Lucas?
Aye.
Councillor Laredo?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Madam Chair, members, thank you for the courtesy of your time.
We'll see you again, and maybe you'll see some members on a site visit. They can go through me to coordinate with you if they'd like to do it that way. Our final item for the night is number 70-24, a request to amend and approve comprehensive sign package and special permit number 218-22 at 1 through 55 Boylston Street, which we often refer to as the street. Let's hear from planning.
Good evening, everyone. Hopefully you can all see and hear me. My name is Kat Kemet. I am a member of staff in the planning department. This is petition 70-24, a special permit amendment for 1-55 Boylston Street. The petitioner proposes to amend their comprehensive sign package, which requires an amendment to their existing special permit. The revised sign package proposes to add 11 new signs, mostly in or on 27 Boylston Street, which is currently under construction. Since the previous amendment to the comprehensive sign package, the layout of the first floor of the building has changed a bit. So a number of storefronts will now have only an interior presence, where previously most or all had also an exterior presence. So this is in part intended to bring attention to those spaces that are not going to be visible from the outside. Of the 11 new signs, 2 are freestanding, the rest will be on the building. In addition to the 11 new signs, 3 existing sign bands will be expanded upon. I want to note that the memo included a few signs that were already approved in the previous amendment, which might have been a bit confusing, so our apologies on that front, but I think the presentation will clarify exactly which signs are included in this request. All of these sign types have been approved in previous amendments, and the petitioner has worked with the Urban Design Commission on this, and the UDC has already approved this plan unanimously. In reviewing this request, the council should consider whether the proposed exceptions to the sign ordinance are appropriate due to the nature of the use of the site, the architecture of the buildings, or their location with reference to the street means an exception is in the public interest. If the site is an appropriate location for the proposed amendments to the sign package, if the proposed sign package will adversely affect the neighborhood, if there will be a nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians, and if access to the site over streets is appropriate for the types and number of vehicles involved. This is the site plan. The site is in a business use 4 district. It has some single residence on north of the site. The land use in this area is primarily commercial, with some green space, housing, and Hammond Pond directly abutting the site. It is 859,404 square feet, and it's improved with several commercial structures and associated parking, which comprises the street. The site includes several adjacent lots. For the purposes of zoning, they're all considered one parcel. The tenants in the complex include shops, restaurants, offices, a grocery store, and a movie theater. And we'll be focusing really on this building towards the center, which is 27 Boylston. Altogether, 11 new signs are proposed and 3 expansions to existing sign bans that already were approved. For the ease of discussing just the signs included in this amendment, as opposed to the petitioner's full sign package, which includes all the signs on the site, of which there are many, I have named and noted just the 14 signs that we're focusing on in this amendment. So this is the east elevation of 27 Boylston Street. The petitioner is proposing to add a new capital column sign that will be on the far right here. So just one new sign on the east elevation. This is the west elevation. Only change here is an expanded sign band. So the sign band was already approved, but this will allow for it to be a bit larger. This is the first of 3 sign bands that were already approved, but in this petition, they are requesting it to just be expanded to accommodate future tenants in 27 Boylston Street. This is the south elevation. This is the side that faces out on Route 9, out on Boylston Street. Consequently, it also has the most signs. So sorry, this is a little busy. So signs 2, 3, and 4 are wall directory signs that will allow for individual tenant signs. So for individual shops, restaurants, things like that. Sign 5 is a vertically oriented blade sign that will have the names of tenants that are interior only. So they may not have direct access from the outside of the building. So this is a way to call attention to them from the outside. There are also 2 existing sign bands that will be expanded. Those are extended sign 2, which is near the south courtyard, and extended sign 3. This is the north elevation. This is the side closest to the main parking area. Signs 6, 7, and 8 are wall directory signs that allow for individual tenant signs. And sign 9 is a horizontally oriented sign that will have the names of those interior tenants over the entrance at this side. Additionally, there will be 2 new freestanding signs on the site. That includes a pedestrian directional arrow, which will be in a landscaped area in front of the north elevation, and a pedestrian directory sign in front of the south elevation. So overall, the department is not concerned with the sign package as proposed. The site is fairly complex with several access points and multiple buildings with multiple tenants. So having clear and visible signage will improve wayfinding and safety on the site. The UDC has worked with the petitioner to review the sign package closely, and they have approved this design. The site is fairly self-contained, and the signs proposed are substantially very similar to what exists on the site now. So we believe that the impact on abutting properties shouldn't be too impactful. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kemet. Is there someone for the petitioner who would like to speak? Come forward, please. Just let us know your name and
Sure.
affiliation.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
That'll be great.
Is that better?
Perfect.
All right. My name's Amanda Chisholm. I'm a development director at The Street with WS Development. I actually have a couple slides I was hoping to pull up just to show some renderings of the building and give you a little more context on why we're asking for these signs. Is that
Yes. You can screen share.
beautiful? Okay. And thank you, Kat, for presenting our application. Appreciate that. So as she mentioned, this is an adjustment to our existing comprehensive sign package, and it's really focused on 27 Boylston Street, which, if you've been by the street lately, is the building that is actively under reconstruction, with tenants set to open this summer. As Kat mentioned, we had a leasing plan change to the first floor, which I'm just gonna flip to real quick. The first floor of the building is actually below grade on the side that faces Route 9. We had originally been proposing to try to create storefronts for each of the tenants that would be in that first floor, but after working through leasing those spaces for about a year, realized it wasn't going to work just in terms of the outline and shape of the spaces, the square footages. It just wasn't leasing. So we had to make a change to create something that would work better for the building, to ensure that we could bring businesses in and help them to thrive and be successful at the street. And what we created is called the Passage, or the Paseo, which is essentially an interior corridor on the first floor. And it includes smaller spaces that only have that interior storefront presence. So many of the signs that we're suggesting tonight, the goal of them is to actually provide presence and visibility to these tenants, again, to ensure that people can find them, that they do have customers, and that they are successful on the site. And then just to give you guys a little bit of a sense of the building and the way this operates, this is a rendering of what 27 Boylston Street will look like when it is complete. This is, again, the Route 9 or south side facing. And you can see I've pointed in the red arrow there to where the passage entrance is. It's a 3-story building. The second floor is about 4 feet above grade. So you can see we've created a platform or plinth structure to provide direct access to that second floor. But the first floor, which is what I was just showing the interior floor plan for, is only accessible by actually taking a lift down into an outside courtyard or walking down a set of stairs. So the visibility for that entire passageway is actually pretty limited on this side. So we're working towards trying to increase that for the entire area and also for the individual tenants that will be within it. On the opposite side of the building, the north side that faces the pond, the entryway is at grade. You can kind of see from the rendering here, the grade is still lower than where folks will park in the parking lot, so it's also challenged from visibility perspective. So the directories that we're proposing are really focused on providing more visibility to those tenants. Kat walked through the actual rendering here, the elevation, but a rendering of this just so you can see what this would look like. We've put some of the tenant signs on here. What we're proposing is directory signage here to allow for more visibility for the passage. It's under the street. I don't know if you can see my mouse moving. The directory signage that is proposed by the actual entryway would be right on the glazing. So as you're approaching the door, you see the full list of tenants. The sign above the entryway saying the Passage, as well as including the tenants with only interior storefronts, and then an elevator directory sign to the right. And we did work really closely with UDC on this to make sure that we responded to their design comments and we came to a consensus on something that they approved and felt was appropriate for the site. I think the other one I just want to point out quickly is the south side, which, as Kat mentioned, there's a few signs here too, just to show the counselors how this works. We're showing the passage entryway at the first floor, which on this side is below grade, so where you need to go down that set of stairs or use the lift. And again, really focused on providing these directory signs. One would be at the top of the stairs, directing folks down into the passageway. One would be on the glazing, again, listing out the names of the tenants as you're actually walking through the entryway. And then a third would be at the exterior lift. So if you're approaching from the opposite direction, the lift is located on that side, and another directory opportunity, tenants below at the exterior lift. The last sign is at the blade sign, which Kat mentioned, which would actually say the passage, and I can show you a rendering of that as well. And then just to clarify the extension of sign bands, we've run into issues before where if we haven't taken this blue sign band across the entire building, if we miss a certain area, then we have to go amend that through the special permit process. So working with Shuby and the UDC, it made sense to make sure that this blue line for principal signs and purple line for blade signs was pulled all the way across the building, in particular for this pier, which was not formally covered, just to allow the ability for this tenant to put a blade sign there. So the extension of the bands is really just to make sure that the entire building is covered in terms of where principal signs or blade signs could be located, to ensure that the process moves smoothly with UDC. And then the last thing I'll point out is we're doing a similar exercise down in the courtyard area, extending the sign band here, because there's an opportunity for exterior storefront down in that courtyard. And just, again, sometimes it's easier to see things in renderings. The directory signage would be located here at the top of the stairs down into the outdoor courtyard where you would enter the passage. There would also be directory signage here on this wall, which is right where the exterior lift would be located. And then there would be directory signage down at the passageway, directly on the glazing, a listing of the tenants as you're entering this particular area. And then this is the rendering of the blade sign that says the passage that would be at the second level, pointing down towards that entryway. Kat ran through the two wayfinding signs, so I don't think I need to get into too much detail there. These are consistent with signs that we already have on the site in other locations, but the idea being to direct folks from the parking areas and in both the front and the back. And that is all I have.
Thank
Maybe
you.
enough.
Thank you very much. Good, very helpful visuals.
Sure.
Are there any members of the public who would like to speak to this petition? Anyone in the chamber or anyone?
Yes, you did it for me. Thank you.
Or anyone on Zoom? I don't see anyone, so we're going to take it into committee. Councilor Laredo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is my ward. I want to just go on record and advise my colleagues that the folks at the street have historically always talked to the ward councilors in advance of doing their work. This has been, I think, a very successful commercial development here in the city. The folks at WS Development, I think, have been very thoughtful about meeting the needs of the neighborhood and creating a really very nice street on Route 9. I have no problems with any of the proposals here. I think they're quite appropriate both to increase the vitality of this project, perfectly appropriate in a heavily commercial area of Route 9. The interior signage makes good sense to me. There's nothing obtrusive or inappropriate, and I think it will contribute to the commercial success of this project, which I think is very important, and I am enthusiastically supporting this. I'll move it when the time comes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Laredo. Anyone else from committee have a comment? I'll just say, too, I very much appreciate that continuous blue band. I think it's it gives a real flow and continuity and potential for how it can be used later. So that was a little stroke of brilliance on the part of the whole team. If there are no other comments, we have a motion. Oh, Councilor Leary.
Larry,
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was actually just going to comment that I think it looks very appropriate. I really appreciate Councilor Laredo giving me his perspective on this. It is a commercial area, and I think they're doing a very good job. So I'm in full support as well. Thank you.
Thank you. If we don't have any more comments, let's look at a board order or council order.
All right, so for findings, 1, the exceptions to the number, size, location, and types of signs proposed are in the public interest because the directional signs will facilitate more efficient and safe navigation of the site for visitors. The signs are appropriate because they are related directly to the use of the premises as a mixed-use shopping center and create a way to identify the location of tenants that are otherwise not visible from outside of the building. 2, the site is an appropriate location for the proposed sign package due to the site's mix of uses and layout with multiple buildings with several tenants, and the location of the complex is in an area with other commercial uses with similar signage. 3, the proposed sign package will not adversely affect the neighborhood because the signs are similar in size and location to what exists on the site now, and few signs will be visible from surrounding residential properties. 4, there will be no nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians because the signs will improve wayfinding on a large and complex site with several entry and exit points. 5, access to the site over streets is appropriate for the types and numbers of vehicles involved. And for conditions, it's really carrying forward what already exists in their special permit. So that includes standard plan referencing with reflecting the revised and updated sign package, standard building permit and occupancy conditions, and bringing forward some of those other conditions, all of the other conditions. That includes no cutouts, projections, or extensions beyond the dimensions specified in the approved plans, no moving parts or flashing/blinking lights, and the petitioner and or tenant shall keep all signs clean and neat and in proper condition.
Is that it, Ms. Kemet?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Councilor Laredo, would you like to make a motion to close the public hearing as well?
I would. I move to close the public hearing and move approval, please, Madam Chair.
Let's vote. So let's all in favor of closing the public hearing say aye.
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 Any opposition? Okay, now we'll take a vote.
Counselor Block,
Aye.
Counselor Downs,
Aye.
Counselor Farrell,
Aye.
Counselor Kelly,
Aye.
Counselor Leary,
Aye.
Counselor Lovovitz,
Aye.
Counselor Lucas,
Aye.
Counselor Laredo.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you, everyone, and we're adjourned. Good luck at the street.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good night, everyone. Oh, folks, tomorrow night's meeting of the school committee and city council has been canceled. Okay, I just sent email out on that.
Thank you. Too bad.
Thank you all. Have a good evening.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.